Slowhands Rock Talk Show.
In a band looking to rehearse or get some high quality recording done, look no further. Paul's Hall Studios is located in Cumbernauld, Scotland. They offer a top-end recording studio, 5 rehearsal rooms and over 2 decades of experience. Click the link in the description for more info. Before the video starts, if you could do me a huge favour and make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. It's free, it only takes seconds to do, and it really does help the channel continue to grow. Now on to the video. We'll make a start, Chris, but thank you so much for making a bit of time out of your day to come onto the podcast, speak to myself all about music. We'll talk about music for yourself. We'll talk about various bands that you've played in and anything else that we can think up as well. But before we get started, how are you actually doing today? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, man, I've just spent the past 2 days with my mother and my uncle and my sister at the house.
Yep.
And that was nice, man. We just got a new house here we've moved into, so we've finally got it to a spot with unpacking that we can have people over and properly entertain. So it was nice, man. I'm feeling good.
Excellent. Well, what I'll do is I'll go back to the very beginning like I do with all the guests. I start at the beginning. So for yourself, where were you originally brought up?
Well, I was born in New York City, and my dad was in the music industry, so we kind of bopped around the East Coast doing different projects and stuff. And then eventually he did a record out here on the West Coast in California, in Northern California. And he just fell in love with the rural vibe of Northern California, the forests, the hills, you can see both Mount Tam and Mount Diablo. And just he fell in love with it, so we moved out here in '75.
Yeah,
and been out here on the West Coast ever since. So I was brought up in Northern California.
Probably a silly question. I'm assuming you were exposed to music from a very young age. But who were some of the bands that like maybe your parents were listening to that were exposing you to music?
Yeah, well, I was brought up around a lot of what people would kind of call Americana rock. My dad was in that vibe. It was, in the hippie scene, there was a strange connection with hippie music and kind of country and folk, with more, more hippie lyrics, but the songs were kind of the same. I listened to a lot of Rick Derringer, Steely Dan, Boss Skaggs, Sly and the Family Stone, a lot of Hendrix, and then more and more as my mom was getting her taste out on the stereos, a lot more Rolling Stones, The Who, stuff like that. And my parents actually divorced when I was 7, so my stepfather, Dave Morris, he was into a little bit more heavier stuff. That's where I started to get exposed more to Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, Blue Cheer, the James Gang, Deep Purple, Zeppelin was a major influence on me. I was a Zeppelin freak from a very young age.
Yeah. I was going to ask, if you cast your mind back, what was the first professional concert that you ever attended?
Well, I had that mom, so she was bringing me to concerts when I was just a baby, and so I went, to a lot of concerts at a very young age. The pinnacle concert for me, I think that I remember the most was 76. We went and saw The Who at Winterland, and 77, the big breaker for me. Because that first Who concert, I was a little overwhelmed. You're only this high, so it's a lot of asses and elbows, and I'm just kind of getting toted around amongst the towers of people, And we went and saw.
I was going to say that would have been the real Who, the 4 original members.
Oh, it was it was the real Who proper. Yeah, Keith Moon, the Ox, Antwistle, and Daltrey. Yeah, and. But the real one for me was seeing Led Zeppelin in '77, their very last show in the United States ever. And that was the day that, unfortunately, Robert Plant found out his son had passed away. And, the infamous concert where the crew and John Bonham and Peter Grant damn near beat stagehand to death for slapping Peter Grant's son.
Yep.
So it was a very trippy day, very long day, but I was transfixed on John Bonham. I didn't take my eyes off him. To tell you a quick story, my stepdad was a professional at getting to the right spot in a concert. He always knew where the band was going to come on stage, and then we'd whip around and get to the front of the stage. He was a little wily guy, and he had me with him too. So, back then he could be like, "Hey, can we move in closer? I've got a little kid with me." And people were like, "Okay." Yeah. So what we did was we went to the side stage to watch the band come on stage. And they were almost 2 hours late coming to the stage because of all the mayhem that day had. And John Bonham and Jimmy Page come walking up the ramp, and I'm like over my dad's shoulders. And John Bonham looks me right in the eyes and he goes, "Hey lad, you should be out there." And he points out to like the ocean of like 68,000 people. And I just snapped. I mean, he's like, he acknowledged me. Me and Jason Bonham are the same age, I think. So he saw me as a little kid and was like, "Whoa, little guy." And that changed my life. I watched that I never took my eyes off John Bonham for that concert. And I went home and I knew that was the rest of my life.
It's funny, like I say to people, live concerts, there's something special that everybody should experience at least once in their life.
Oh, yeah.
Because without sounding dramatic, it is life-changing. It's such a great thing to go and see a band that you love perform live. You not only hear the music, but you feel the music. Everybody is on the same page. I remember going to see my first big concert was Metallica back in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's when I started going to gigs. And, of course, being the young person that I was, I only had a seating ticket. So me and my friend, we jumped the barrier because we wanted to get into the standing area. And we actually got ourselves right to the front barrier. But this is back in the 90s, before the internet. So you weren't used to going onto YouTube and just typing in whatever you wanted to watch. You weren't used to seeing your favourite band perform live. So to have James Hetfield or Jason Newsted, whoever it was, to have them stood right in front of you and you've got their poster on your wall, you're like, this is crazy. This is actually them.
Yeah, it transcends right from the sound to the image to three-dimensional experience, right?
Yeah, and the cool thing is as well, though, I'm in my mid-40s now. I still get the same feeling going to gigs now that I did 30 years ago. It's changed.
Yeah, when that stops, you're dead.
Yeah. But I was going to ask you, why the drums? Why not the guitar or the vocals or another instrument? But was it watching bands like Led Zeppelin and The Who that made you want to pick up the drums?
Well, when I was a little guy, I wanted to be a bass player. And I was super obsessed with the bass. I wanted to be Jack Cassidy from the Jefferson Starship, or Airplane at that time. And I just loved the bass, and I really always heard the bass. But I think what I was really hearing was the interplay between the drums and the bass, and how I think I had an early concept of the rhythm section is this, and then you have this other wall of sound that's created by the guitar players or guitar player and singer and keyboard player. And there's this unit in the back kind of gluing everything together. And then I think the drums came when I sat behind a drum kit at a very young age and I could play like out the gate. I had the body separation. So it wasn't like, all limbs dropping at once, just da, da, da. I had, I had the 8s, the 16s. It just happened. And I remember my folks and other people going, "What, you can just play the drums?" And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I just heard it and it just came out of me. So then then comes Keith Moon, then comes Ian Pace. Here comes, the whole John Bonham thing. And I'm seeing what they're doing and I'm hearing it differently now. I'm like, whoa, you could fucking do cool shit.
Yeah.
And it just took me over.
It's like it was meant to be. But the previous episode to this one, 2 days ago, I had Dave Lombardo on talking to Dave, and who I'm assuming you probably know.
How am I going to follow that up?
Right? But he was the same, as in, he was saying when he goes to gigs, he doesn't warm up. Like, he'll turn up 15 minutes before it, just jump on stage and start playing War Assemble or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just meant to be. It sounds like you're the same. It was just meant to be.
Yeah, I do tend to warm up. I do a small warm up. It's important, but you know what it is? It's really not like warm up proper. It's getting in the zone, right? I do need to take, just like 15 minutes, probably him too. But when people talk warm ups, they're talking about the practice pad kit back there or going through 10,000 rudiments. And, I sit down and I just kind of talk to the guys and I just get the feel of the sticks in my hands. I don't use pedals backstage or anything on pads. I just, I do a lot of stretching. That's the one thing, because that's always been bred into me with like martial arts and sports. Is like stretching is essential. So you don't get cramps, you don't strain anything, you don't pull a fucking shoulder or an elbow but like proper warm-ups, I don't do it. It's just, I'm ready to go. I just want to get in the zone because I do a lot of like the pre-planning at shows. I'm one of those guys that wants to make sure that the crew's okay. The stage is ready. I'm big into the production, is the backdrop up, are the scrims up, are the lights right, so I'm focusing on a lot of other shit, but then I need to stop and get in drum mode. But it's not a big, long, drawn-out process or anything,
You've been doing it for such a long time now. Do you still get nervous, or is it a good kind of nervous?
I get nervous when things aren't all like, if I leave the stage before I go back and get in the zone and my crew is running around going, oh fuck, we don't, or this is still broken, we'll get it, or the monitor isn't working right now, but we'll have it ready. Yeah, then I'll be like, fuck, is everything going to be going off? Because my whole thing is, being an Alice Cooper fan, Kiss fan, I'm a big fan of production. So even if it's a small amount of production, it could be just a backdrop. I want to make sure the shit's right. I want to make sure the crowd can see it. It's even. It's not off to the side. I'm very symmetrical that way. So I only get nerves when it's like, everybody's on walkie-talkies going, okay, so no, this isn't. You mean change this? And I see everybody still pushing buttons. I'll get a little like, are we going to get up there and is shit going to work?
Yeah, it's like getting nervous about things that are out with your control.
Yes,
it's like you trust your own ability, that the minute you sit down at the drum kit, as long as you've got your drumsticks and a bottle of Buckfast, you're ready to go.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where's me Buckfast? That's always a given, man. I always feel comfortable that we're ready to play. We're tight. We're well rehearsed.
Yep.
We're on fire. I do like to group up with the guys and say, get a little huddle and. I'll touch fists and be like, let's go give it to them. Let's do our best. It's a great show, great town. Little pep talks we all give each other and stuff. And then we break and we bounce, up there. So, yeah.
I'm curious, Chris, what was your plan leaving high school? Was it to get into music professionally, or did you have other plans?
Yeah, there was two things going on at once. I played a lot of sports and played football and I wanted to play football. But at that same time, because I was very young when I was already playing in bands, 15, 16. So going into high school, I had already played live shows and stuff, So I had both of them kind of, what's it going to be? And the more and more I woke up to the realities of playing sports at a pro level, I knew that it would be hard plugging to get that to happen. And then I got exposed to like punk rock, and I started to speak to some of the elder statesmen in punk rock, the older guys that have been doing it, Dave MDC, people like that were like, dude, music is going to be something you can do forever. You won't be able to play sports, And then he was also kind of in on how the high school sports mentality, college sports, they don't care about your education, really. They don't want to use your body. And so I was getting a political edge on that mindset too from them, saying, look, you're not your own master when you're playing at a college or playing for a high school in sports. You're being used a lot of the. And I do remember they would give me, if my grades would drop, they would put a tutor on me, and the tutor would like do my homework for me to pass me so that I could play governed by the rules of grade point averages. So I could see like, they're just making sure I can play, not making sure I leave high school fucking with any brains or education, right? So music took over pretty fucking fast. I started to tour with bands as roadie and then put Attitude Adjustment together pretty damn quick.
So I was going to say, obviously, you formed that Attitude Adjustment 1985 with
actually 84.
84. And that's with Eric Smith and Rick Strahl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that your first proper professional band?
No. So Eric and myself were in a 2-person band called Homicidal Youth, and that was our first band. And we played a couple shows. And then I also played with my stepfather. I was like a little bit of a novelty because I would go to the shows and they'd be rocking, and then they'd say, "Hey, I'm going to bring my son up to play a couple songs," and I'd play like, Boney Maroney by Johnny Winter or Jumpin' Jack Flash, So it was kind of like, whoa, the kid can play, And so I already had a sense of the stage. I had a sense of the give and take between the audience and the musicians and stuff. So that was already very alluring to me.
I was listening to Attitude Adjustment earlier today. And it's got great vibes. It's like, it reminded me of old Sepultura. There's like that, there's the heavy metal, but there's also the punk element combined.
Right.
It's really cool.
Well, that was a very, very special thing that happened here in the Bay Area was crossover. I believe that we invented the crossover scene,
But I know obviously you recorded with the band. You played lots of gigs with the band. I had a wee look online, and it said that you played alongside bands like Forbidden, Suicidal Tendencies, Corrosion of Conformity, and Violence. Is that where you originally crossed paths with Rob Flynn?
Yeah, I knew Rob from back in the day with Forbidden. I think I booked a show at Ruthie's that was actually maybe Forbidden's second or third proper gig.
Yep.
Back then, Forbidden Evil, And so that's where I knew the guys. And we were all blending, and we were all going to all the shows. It was like the cultural aspect of those times was very strong. It was like, again, tape trading, word of mouth, flyers were the internet. Social media was fanzines, and then college radio stations or independent radio stations were our only real stream. I mean, this is like, Headbangers Ball isn't even happening yet. So we're not getting any love. It was all on us,
See, when you think back to that time period, scarily, it's almost 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Does it seem like 40 years ago? Does it seem like yesterday? What does it feel like when you think back to that time period?
If I do the math, then the time started to becoming like blocks, right? But organically, it doesn't. Because I think maybe some of that is that some of us are so still connected, and so many of us. I just played Columbia with Violence. I see all the guard. If they're not dead, they're still here, right? And so I think that makes the time almost an illusion because it's same as it ever was. It's the guys from Heathen, Testament, DRI, Fang, you know, Death Angel. It's like we're all still here, so we're like lost in a dream, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So the time isn't just going.
It's just keep rocking. That's all you can do is just keep rocking.
Yeah.
But, how did you then get involved with Machine Head? Because you were there pretty much quite near the start of it.
Oh well, I'm the first. There's always been confusion here about this, and it's been said before, but I'll run it real quick. I was in a band called Grinch, and I was also in a band called Verbal Abuse at the time, and Attitude Adjustment. So I was juggling 3 bands.
Right.
And Rob was a very big fan of Attitude Adjustment, and he was also loving this band Grinch, which was like prototype kind of Neurosis. You know, we were all coming up at the same time, so it was a little ahead of its time. Kind of had a Jesus Lizard, Tool, Proto Tool, before Tool kind of thing going on.
Yep.
And I knew that he was getting ready to offer new songs to Violence. That was kind of a buzz that, you know, Rob's writing all this new stuff for Violence.
Yep.
And I guess when he offered that music to Violence, they didn't get it. The detuning, the one finger, you know, they didn't get it. They were like, what the fuck is that? So I guess that saw itself into him leaving Violence, and he called me and said, hey, I have an opportunity to try out for the band Ministry to fill in. And they want to hear music, and I don't want to send them Violence. I want to send them these new songs I'm writing.
Right,
so
okay.
Would you come in and record these 4 songs so I can get like a little raw tape of this music to present? And I said, sure. You know, and it was not to even be in the band. So we did that, and I think that was like Blood for Blood, Fuck It All, Rage to Overcome, and something else. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the demo just went out. He didn't get the job. I went to New York for some months. I was back there, and when I came home, that's when they had Tony Costanza. Rob was going to get Joey from Horde of Torment, and he moved to Cincinnati and never really stayed in touch with Rob. And Joey's student drum tech just took it upon himself and said, hey, Joey's not coming. I want to come out. And that's how the Tony Costanza thing happens. And then that ran its course pretty quick. Unfortunately, it just wasn't a fit. He was a great guy, but he also had a lot of, you know, rest his soul, but he had a lot of mental issues at the time. Yeah. And I came home and I could sense that, and I didn't really know Tony, so I was just like, Rob, let's do this, dude. Yeah. I'll be the drummer for this band. Let's fucking smash it.
So how did you two then cross paths with Logan and Adam?
So in that time where he was kind of cultivating this idea before he called me, they had never played with a drummer. They were just kind of playing together in bedrooms together. And that was the first time Machine Head had ever dropped those songs with a drummer. So I'm like, I you know, no championing, but I'm just saying I was the first drummer that played those any Machine Head songs. And then Tony came in, they did write some music. And then, so they knew each other just kind of from the scene. But it was Logan and Adam's first band ever.
Yeah. But I had to be look as well. Burn My Eyes, it was released in August 1994.
Yeah.
At the time, it was Roadrunner Records' best-selling debut album.
Right.
It's one of my favourite albums to date. And I personally, I still think it's the band's best album. I think the worst thing that ever happened to Machine Head was that their first album was so great. I don't think they've ever been able to top it. And I know people will argue all day about the blackening and that, but I still think Burn My Eyes is a masterpiece. There's not no low point in that album. There's no track that you would skip It's like the perfect heavy metal album.
Yeah. Rob wrote some incredible shit. The things that, the few things that I came up with, I think turned out to be pretty signature, where, maybe some of the songs were written with a fast beat and I flipped it into a groove beat.
Yeah.
Like Old, for instance, Old was written, and I was like, that's cool, but that's like Exodus.
Yeah.
And I said, if we're going to break ground here, you got to remember, we're facing grunge at that time. We're facing a whole change in the industry musically, right? So if we're going to raise an eyebrow in that time, I was like, let's get people to move differently to the music. Mm-hmm. And just the glimpse of groove metal was starting to happen with like Pantera and Sepultura, looking at different rhythmical patterns. Yeah. So I was like, what about bum bum and Rob went and we just, and it really formatted the rest of how we wrote that record and how we approached just going yeah. Even though we did Skank and we did drop, Cyber Blast, whatever kind of stuff, it was our mission to fucking make people move differently, and it brought women to the front because it was somehow danceable, a little bit more like, fuck yeah, just, and so it brought a groove element into it,
Yeah, I mean, the first song I ever heard was 1,000 Lies, and that's a perfect example of a song that's got different grooves.
Yeah.
And in fact, at the end of the song, it gets slower and slower. Like there wasn't many bands doing that.
Right. We just investigated what we were doing, and we were in a no compromise, no cliches. Let's take risks. Let's you know what I mean? Let's push our abilities to the fucking, not be comfortable, but like, this is fucking everything I fucking got right now, man. I'm at the top of my fucking ability, as opposed to like playing at 75% comfortable.
Yeah. I remember seeing
a lot of ugly faces I was making trying to pull that shit off.
I remember seeing an interview with Logan, and he was saying about his guitar playing style was, back then, he obviously was a lot younger, that he said he wasn't that great a guitarist, but it almost forced him into playing a style that has now became his style. Because he wasn't technically gifted, he had to think up different ideas that still stood out, but that turned into his style.
Yes, a very unorthodox. I said way back. I said, Logan was like a 4-year-old baby alien that picked up a guitar for the first time, and his weird fingers just went to the right places to make it his thing. Yeah, and it did define Lolo's style, and he still has this weird texture, and just his ear is so good. He's a phenomenal producer, I believe, because of that too. I think he sees in between the cracks, and he reads between the lines, so where it's like, oh, we can make that this, and it's like, what? And it's like, whoa, it becomes magic.
What is your memories of recording that album? I know it was recorded in 1993, but how quick did the recording of the album come together?
We took our fucking time. One thing that Colin Richards wanted to do was dig in. Was that the best it can be?
Yeah.
And you got to remember, we're recording on 2-inch tape. There's no Pro Tools. There's no, it's long. You fucked up 3.5 minutes into the song. Do it again, and you're like, fuck.
How important was it to have someone like Colin Richardson producing the album?
We had a dream team, because I can't leave out Vincent Wojna.
Right.
he took engineer credit.
Yeah.
But he pulled a lot of performance out of us. Colin and him, and I'll say it the other way too. Colin had a lot of engineering techniques that he wanted to apply with the guitar tone and how we would mic the drums, how we would mic things, the microphone selection, the preamp settings. They really worked together on that album, and I have to say there were times where Vincent was, for me, we had a New York dialogue because he's from the East Coast.
Right.
So knowing that, I could do a take and they'd be like, whoa, that was badass. And I could see Vinny be like, was it? And I'm like, nah, did you hear that one part? He's like, I heard it. I heard it. You want to do that again? I'm like, yeah, let me try that section again. Yeah. So he really helped me on that regard.
The cool thing, listening,
we were to answer your, we were there for at Fantasy Studios for 42 days.
Yeah, the cool thing, listening to it, sonically, I think it sounds better than albums being released today. It's a great sounding album, but it sounds like a band playing. It doesn't sound it doesn't sound too perfect, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, perfect is the enemy of great.
Yeah, it sounds like four guys. Sounds like four guys creating magic. It doesn't sound like it's been created on a computer. Yeah.
I mean, one thing we did some kick drum aligning on a thing that a guy brought down from a computer place that he worked at. And he was inventing this thing, and we were like, what is this thing you're going to use? And he was like, we're going to be able to take the kick drums and move them in a way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, it turned out to be Pro Tools.
Yeah.
So we were actually one of the first bands to use, in a very small way, just because we didn't want perfect, but there were times where it got loose. It got loose in a bad way. So we wanted to do a little work on that. And I remember it was an arduous task. It was not defined yet. It was not a refined Pro Tools yet, but it was the birth of Pro Tools. And we did some alignment on the kicks, just to make them fucking my intention. Maybe I was concentrating on something else up top on the drums. Getting the toms, the feet went or flammed, Yep. So we did some of that, but that was the actual earliest thing. But I think people have lost the fucking plot.
Yeah.
And this perfection mountaintop that people are trying to get to, and this synthetic sound, it can take the fucking soul and heart and texture and like what you're talking about. I want to hear the room.
Yeah.
If I hear sweat dripping on the floor, that's better. You know what I mean? Listening to John Bonham, and if you listen deep, you can hear his kick drum squeaking.
Yeah.
His pedal.
Yeah. Interesting. Like if you were to record Burn My Eyes today with the technology that you've got, you could make it 100% perfect. I'll guarantee it wouldn't sound as good as 1994 Burn My Eyes.
Did you hear the re-recording?
When you were in the studio?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Well, we tried to do as much of that live as possible.
You weren't far off it. It was
yeah. Yeah. And so what you can use all of that, all of those things that you can use to make it perfect. If you don't abuse the technology, you can still be just using it like it's tape.
Yeah.
You still can capture a real performance. This is our theory on the new Forbidden album.
Yeah.
We put a lot into it, but we kept the hair. We like to call it the hair.
Yeah.
And that stuff, that cymbal overing, that guitar, right, the little thing before the pick slide. When the pick actually touched the strings, not just the pick slide, but the I also call it guacamole. the little splatters that are in there that give you this musicianship, the real hands.
Yeah, it's the human element that's missing from a lot of music nowadays.
100%, man. It's destroyed in a lot of ways the listening experience for me because I hear it all being done.
Yeah. What's your favourite song from the Burn My Eyes album?
I've never been able to answer that question.
No.
That's like picking a baby, Yeah. Everything has an element that brings great joy to me. Whether it's playing it, what another musician did for it, the guitar solo section. It's always been an impossible question.
Yeah.
I don't have an unfavorite. There's not a song I could just say thumbs down on. Like, nah, that one just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
And then it's so heavily attached to my legacy that I hold it in such high regard.
As you should.
It's a total work for me.
Yeah.
And that's a hard place to get because there's other records I listen to and I'm like, why did I fucking do that? Why am I hitting a cymbal? Why am I hitting a drum roll through the fucking vocal? Like I should have gave space, and there's regrets on certain albums where I'm like, man, you overplayed or you underplayed or you over accented. You didn't need to be ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
You could have let it breathe, right? I don't have moments like that on the Burn My Eyes album.
No, that's fine. But obviously, you'd left Machine Head after that. We'll probably come back to that because there's a 25th anniversary that we're talking about. But you played in many, many bands. Exodus, Death Angel, Verbal Abuse. You're talking about... were you recording just earlier, did you say?
Yeah, we've been mixing and recording. We just completed the Forbidden album. Now we're going on to mastering.
What's up, everyone? Kev, Chris, and Jason from In Charge, and you're watching Slowhands Rock Talk Show, talking all things music.
Just a very quick message to say thank you for watching. It really is appreciated. If you could hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and remember to hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any future episodes that come out. Now back to the video. Are you going to be going on tour with that once that's complete?
Oh yeah, we just signed to Black Records, Frontiers.
Yeah.
We've got great management, great legal now. We have I probably have the strongest team outside of the band to work a project that I've ever had.
Yeah.
All the pieces are in place, and I will say, I'm sure this is cliche, but I feel that this is my definite answer to Burn My Eyes.
Yeah.
I feel that strongly about the record. It's fantastic in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm curious. But you're playing with Forbidden just now. There's obviously all those other bands. There was Machine Head before that. Do you have the same drum setup for each band, or does it change depending on which band you're playing with?
Yeah, well, it's kind of morphed, right? Like in Forbidden Classic, it's so musical. The guitar riff is the drum fill. There's a lot of staccato elements to Forbidden. That I do need the big sweeper from 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, 18, a myriad of cymbals. I've always been a cymbal freak. Yeah. But yeah, like in punk rock, I play a way more reduced set. Kick, 2 toms, floor tom, snare. When I play big rock and roll stuff, because I've done some stuff that is off the radar for a lot of metal people and stuff that are rock bands that I played in and stuff. Where I'll just use like a John Bonham setup, 1 tom, 2 floor toms, ride, 2 crashes, hi-hats, just big, beefy. So yeah, I like to suit the kit to match the musicality or the demands of what the music's asking for.
And recording with Forbidden, how are you recording? Are you recording the drums first? And do the rest of the guys layer on top of that?
This time, we did those first 3 songs. We recorded 3 songs just to get the ball rolling because we had been playing for almost 2 years and we did not want to just stagnate as a legacy band. We wanted to show that, no, we're coming with new music, right? So that time I recorded just with Craig. Craig was doing the rhythm tracks, and we freeformed it. We played it without a click. After being in Machine Head on the 25th anniversary, I had to play that all the rehearsals, all the shows were to a click track. First time in my life.
Right.
And Rob told me, man, it's going to make you a better drummer. If you get this click in your head and you can really use the click and play behind it or just in front of it, or kind of just make it your dog, it'll make you a better drummer, even when you're not playing with the click.
Yeah.
And so we did it freeform, and we were still able to use Pro Tools with the takes because it was fucking locking in. This time, when we completed the record to finish it off at 12 songs, I played to pre-recorded demo tracks and to the click.
Yep.
And so we did the drums first, then into rhythm guitars, then after those are down, bass, and then vocals. And then depending on how the vocals sat and everything and what was being done vocally, because Craig is a very lyrical soloist. When he does solos, they're very lyrical and almost maybe close to more vocals as opposed to just, wanking. Yeah. And then we have a shredder in Jeremy. Jeremy is such a shredder. And on those first songs, we had Daniel Mongrain from Voivod.
Right.
Jeremy Von Epp is technically sound just fucking so good. And that was the last kind of thing we did with the solos, and then gang vocals. And we did some pretty different stuff on this album. I'm not going to lie, there's some keyboard stuff that we did it's not using it just for thickness or whatever. The keyboards have their own little thing that makes it a story, It's a bit of rap opera, to tell you the truth.
When do you think that will be released?
Don't quote me, and I hope I don't get in trouble from the record label, but it's looking like August.
It'll be this year, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
And obviously, I know that you used to do BMXing. Do you still dabble in that?
Can't do it, man. I'm too, like we were talking about sports, I'm too competitive. So I can't just go out there and bop around,
I know you'd said in a previous interview when you'd left Machine Head, you did do BMXing for a while, but you didn't want to do drumming at the same time in case you got hurt.
Yeah, that was...
Assuming if you're drumming now, you can't really afford to get hurt anyway.
No, we have a saying in BMX, if you're not crashing, you're not trying.
Right, okay.
Right, so every progression of speed or attacking the obstacles, you crash a lot. Right. And so I did not want to have in the back of my head, I've got a gig next week.
Yeah.
And I'll toot my horn, I was fucking very successful in BMX racing. I podiumed 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And I won the Grand National Championship. I won multiple state championships. I won, nationals and tons of local races. So I didn't want any apprehension, And just to be clear, I didn't start racing until 2014. So
right.
I didn't race BMX right after Machine Head. That did not come until 2014. I had an operation. I fell into a coma. I was 329 pounds. I was drinking and drugging too much, and I was very not prepared for that surgery. And it went sideways and just pear-shaped. And I fell into a coma, and I woke up and I said, I'm going to race BMX. And everybody was like, whoa, easy, killer. Fat guys, you'll break a bike. You're too fat. And I went for it hard. And just stopped playing music for 6 years. Yeah. And I lost 148 pounds in 7 months and became a whole new person. And it was a great reset, man. I got to tell you, I was on the edge of becoming jaded and hating music. And it was perfectly timed. I mean, nobody wants to fall into a coma, but for me, it was a big fix. Yeah. It reset my mind. So when Rob did call 2019 to to do the band again, the 25th anniversary, I was physically just ship rope and just ready to fucking go.
Well, I was going to ask, how are you doing physically now? Because obviously the style of drums that you play is physically demanding.
Yeah.
How do you feel just now? And also, how do you think your drumming is now compared to, for example, 30 years ago?
Yeah, I think something, I mean, physically, I have no back pain, no real bad issues. I hyperextended my knee in 23. And so that injury, when you're older, it kind of lingers. Like my buddy says, once you're 50, you never go back to 100% if you hurt yourself, And so, barring that stupid fucking injury getting off a plane, my knee, I stepped down and I thought the step was like this and it was like this. Right. And I went, oh, and I was like, there goes the fucking knee. But physically, the things like I don't have arthritis. I'm still limber. I mean, I can get up in the morning and put my palms on the floor. In a full, I'm very limber. I'm very flexible. I feel great. I don't feel fatigued when I play. So as far as that, I'm fucking sound for 58. I mean, I turned 58 years old in June, and no stopping me, kid. I feel like that's a no-brainer.
That's cool. I was going to ask, knowing what you know now,
yeah,
see if you could go back and speak to Chris Kontos in 1985. What advice would you give yourself?
It's a good fucking question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. That's a fucking very introspective fucking question, dude.
Maybe the question would be, with Chris Kontos in 1985, listen to his older self.
One thing I've always thought to myself is respect your elders and learn from advice. My mother instilled that in me. She always said the stupidest question you could ask is the one you don't ask. And never block out. Don't think you know it all. Right, I learned a lot from Tom Hunting, Dave Lombardo, Felix from DRI, Matt Fillmore. I was always seeking that, and that's the beauty of drumming too, which is a little different than guitar players. Yeah. We all kind of get off if we can play the beat. Oh, you could do that beat, or we're like it's more of a shared community. Drummers, you stole my riff,
Yeah,
and that doesn't happen with drummers, unless it's really something, like. But how's Lombardo going to say you stole? You can't, it's not his, That's been done by big band drummers,
Yeah,
but he's known for it, or kind of, I guess I would say to the little Chris, be a little less driven to a fault. Right? Because I was always driven on the process and the come on, guys. There's always one or two guys in a band that are going to drive the band. And then other members are like, cool, man, whatever. You guys deal with that. So I would probably say just temper my delivery. Be mindful of not being a pit bull to make it,
It's funny you say that because it kind of leads into my next question. You've worked with lots of different bands. In your opinion, what makes a band work? And not in terms of success, but what makes a band function? What makes a band work? Does a band need a leader?
Yeah. Well, being a good leader is a lot of temperance of ego. And again, how you deliver the marching orders. So I think the best way to describe that is an open line of communication built on a trust that, hey, I'm only going this hard, bro, so we can make it, not so I can make it.
Yeah.
But I love what you bring to the table. He loves what he brings to the table. It's this unilateral, unified front. Yeah. And it's very hard to develop. when you've got testosterone and,
Yeah, a band is a hard thing to keep together.
It's a 5-man platonic marriage with no makeup sex.
Yep.
You know?
Pretty much. I've heard that lots of times. But 2019, you're invited back to Machine Head to obviously celebrate the 25th anniversary of Burn My Eyes.
Yeah.
Were you in communication with Rob prior to that, or was that the first time you'd heard from him in a while?
We had started to mend the fences. We'd see, there was, it was a hard out, and we were not cool for a very long amount of time.
Yeah.
And it was extremely painful to lose the Machine Head spot. I've never been shy about saying it damaged me.
Yeah.
We just didn't have the tools to get past ourselves.
Yep.
At 24 years old. We just were two fucking rams on a mountain. We had two different approaches. Either approach would work, but Rob had a definite fucking vision.
Yep.
And I had my way of doing things. He had his way, and it was just clashing. And we didn't have an intermediary in the band. Logan was non-confrontational. Adam Deuce was, whatever, no love lost. A little self-absorbed. So he was like, get your shit. He didn't give a fuck. Maybe if one of them would have been, hey, man, here's the other one, and could have stepped in and mediated.
But when you're 24 years old, that doesn't exist.
It just doesn't, man.
No.
And so we have regrets. I think the most powerful thing when we got back together, so we had been seeing each other at shows, and we'd be standing there and we'd look over at each other watching Merciful Fate or Judas Priest or something, and we'd be singing lyrics to each other and be like, yeah. And then it kind of got to, if I saw Rob standing somewhere, I'd come up behind him and like grab him and be like, what's up? And he's like, hey. So we were starting to get cool with each other's presence and exposure to each other. Yeah. And then we had some enjoyable moments at shows, and backstage partying with people, and and we've had the compliments when from people like looking back on Burn My Eyes, like let's say 2017 or something. People would see us both together, and they would take that opportunity to give us some love for Burn My Eyes, and we both have this moment, kind of like, wow, we did that shit, dude. Like this guy is whoever he is from a band, and he fucking says it was a big part of his fucking drive, So when he called for the 25th anniversary, we went and had a dinner, and it turned into a 4-hour dinner, dude, where we shared feelings that we weren't able to express when we were kids. Yeah. How much we meant to each other, how much we missed each other, how much time we both spent telling other musicians we were with, it's got to be more like a Machine Head thing. Like, you know what Rob did? I would use Rob, and I found out he did that too. It's got to be, that Kontos thing, where, like the Tom thing. He would always say the Kontos thing, and that can be rough on members of new band. Like, hey, I'm not Rob Flynn. Like, I'm not going to play it, and so, but we always had that chiming. And I said when I came home to my wife after that dinner, I said, if there was no even opportunity to go do the reunion tour, but we just had this meeting to clear the fucking black tar that we both pushed down deep inside, we were able to extract that and just throw it on the fucking floor finally and say, I love you, dude, and I love what we did together. But there was glory attached with that 25th anniversary, bro. It was like, let's go put a stamp on the fucking legacy right now,
It was the entire thing was such a cool idea.
Yeah.
From a fan point of view, because, he's went on the tour. I went and saw you in Glasgow on the tour. It was brilliant. But you re-recorded in the studio. That was fun to see that. What I also really enjoyed, you had a sit-down meeting. I think it was the 4 members. What do you remember about recording the album, about writing the album?
Yeah.
And you told stories that had never been told before. It's really interesting from a fan's point of view.
Sure.
And it annoys me because there's there's other bands out there that I really love who have had similar situations to Machine Head. You know, they lose members, and there's anniversaries coming up, and people don't want to take part, and it's a shame. You know, it's nice that he's actually matured enough that he's got to the point that you're at, because there's lots of bands out there, sadly, that they're still in that situation where there's certain members don't want anything to do with it.
Sure.
It's a bit of a question that maybe you can't answer. Maybe it's not the right time or the right place. Was Adam invited to the reunion? Did he not want to take part in it? Is it not in that space?
That situation with Machine Head and Adam got very, very ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, in comparison to even the Out with me, you know, or even Logan or any other past member, that got fucking ugly. I
mean, that's nothing against Jared. It was just simply because, obviously, Rob brought back yourself and Logan.
It just wasn't.
So you would think, would Adam be a choice as well? Because, I mean, he was a huge part of Machine Head for a long time as well.
Sure. Yeah, it just wasn't an option. You know, I asked right away, are we getting Adam?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that interplay where it got all ugly with him, right? So I knew it got ugly, but I thought, well, if me and you can crush crush the past, and get that goo out of the way, is that an option with Adam? And Rob was like, nope, not going to happen.
Maybe not at this time. Maybe the 40th anniversary we'll maybe see him. If Slash and Axl can do it, I'm guessing anybody can do it.
Hey, you never say never, right? You know?
What was it like? What was it like relearning and playing the songs again? Because obviously, when as a fan, when I'm hearing you've already done all the practice, but it didn't sound like you had skipped a beat. It sounded exactly the way it should have sounded way back in the day. How was it relearning the songs?
Okay, this is going to sound really fucking arrogant, but I'll just go for it.
Go for it.
I hadn't played those songs since Argentina in 1985 or 95.
Yeah.
Because everybody knew it was a sore subject.
Yeah.
So no band member in any band I was in was ever going to say, let's play Davidian, bro. You know, it just. So when I came in for the first rehearsal, we played Davidian first, of course, and just slap. I had not. So the one thing that was always reoccurring over my career after Machine Head was inevitably somebody in the crowd would yell, Davidian! Or let freedom ring with the shotgun blast. And I would go in between songs. I would boom, boom, bam, right? And then, you know, so it almost became my Freebird. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
probably me.
Yeah, right. So that was the only lick that I ever played since 85, 95. Sorry. So when we sat down, right? And we crush it. Like we fucking crush it. And so Rob's like, fucking old, right? 5 songs in, Rob goes, wow, dude, you really have been preparing and learning the songs again and shit. And I was like, bro, I haven't played one of these songs since 95. And he goes, what? And I'm like, dude, this is the most heartfelt drumming I ever played in my career. This was the most organic, totally inspired fucking shit that I ever played. It's fucking welded to my fucking brain, dude. And he was like, holy fuck, dude, it took me fucking a couple weeks to get these songs back under my hands. Yeah. You know, because they've always been playing like, you know, they cannot play without doing Davidian. Yeah. Right? And they've done Nation on Fire. And then I think they even did like a 10-year anniversary at one point with Dave where they played the whole Burn My Eyes, right? Yep. but he hadn't played it in a really long time. Songs like I'm Your God Now and None But My Own, and some of the deeper cuts, So it was just there, dude, on tap. And I really didn't, I swear to God, dude, I didn't play my drums for 7 days before that rehearsal because I was racing. I was still racing.
Yeah.
Right up, but when I started the rehearsals, that was my last race. So, dude, we recorded that rehearsal, that re-recording. It was 11 days.
Yeah.
11 days in. And Rob goes, we're going to re-record the fucking Burn My Eyes record. I'm like, what? The fuck are you talking about? He's like, we're going to do it like we're rehearsing.
Yeah.
We're rehearsing in this room. We're going to set up mics.
I mean, it was great to hear it from a fan's point of view.
Sure.
And when I was listening to it, I mean, the band sounded great, but, the people that Rob plays with over the years, they're all great musicians.
Sure.
The band sounds great, but there is a specific sound. There's a chemistry between yourself, Rob, and Logan that it can't be recreated by another set of musicians.
Right. Yeah, there's a thumbprint to that album, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually you'd mentioned this earlier about fans coming up and mentioning Burn My Eyes. Before I came on the chat, I had a wee look on YouTube, and I typed in Burn My Eyes 25th anniversary, and the first video that came up was a live performance of Davidian. And I looked at the first 5 comments, and I'm going to read them out to you.
Okay.
But first comment, this is one of the most important pieces of metal drumming of all time. The next comment, it just hits different with Kontos on drums. The next one, the gold standard of drummers, having the right person on the throne sets the tone for this band. The next one, this is how the drums should be played with power, soul and groove. And the next one, living legend, some of the tastiest, grooviest chops in metal music ever. I mean, I don't know who these people are. This is just random comments. There was over 400 comments on the video. I would have said every comment was something along the same lines. People love what you done on the anniversary tour. They loved what you done back in 1994. That's not going to change. That must be a great feeling to know that something that you have done has impacted that many people, and it still does to this very day.
Wow. That's emotional, bro. I mean, because I feel that way about so many drummers,
Yeah.
I feel that way about so many musicians, man. It's incredibly humbling, and my gratitude and appreciation for the fact that I could have inspired people in that way, or to receive those kind of accolades or kudos, man. It's fucking everything, man. It's
and it was also great. It was great for myself because when Machine Head came out in 1994 with that album, I was just a little bit too young that the parents would not allow me to go to a concert.
Yeah.
I got to see Machine Head every tour thereafter. Of course, you were no longer part of it. And then obviously they lost Logan, who I loved playing the guitar as well. I still loved Machine Head. I loved the band throughout, all the different members. But there's something special about that first album for myself.
Yeah.
And it is great. But obviously, Chris, we've spoke a lot about Machine Head, about your other bands, about recording, a bit about BMXing. And obviously, you said for 2026, we've got this new album that's in the works. It's going to be coming out. You're going to be touring on the back of it. Is that your main plans for 2026?
Yeah. It's just get the record out. We've done 2 videos. I just completed. I've been directing all of our videos for Forbidden.
Right. Okay.
Concept, casting, everything. So it's been a huge caseload that I've really, really enjoyed doing it. So we're releasing a new single, hopefully in June. The last of the first 3 that we recorded. Then we'll be doing 2 more videos before, one for the launch, and then one shortly after that, after the record comes out. Yep. We're extremely enthusiastic about working with Black to Black. They put out the Megadeth and it charted, number 1. They've got Biohazard and, a lot of other my fucking mates. They've got a lot of great ideas about how to fucking change what's going on in the industry right now. Their approach is, I feel Roadrunner 94 vibes. What's been lost? How did the record industry lose the plot? What can we do to change that? How can we appreciate the musicians more that we sign? A better feel for the consumer and what they may want. So we're really fucking stoked about that. Like I was talking about earlier, we've got a great team of legal and management. We're FM management, and they've got Exodus, Death Angel, Testament, Violence, and, Hell, Blood Hunter, and just like so many fucking bands, Destruction, and, so many of our contemporaries that we fucking love, right? So we feel at a home there. We have Eric German as our lawyer. He's really, back in the day, he was a huge Forbidden fan. So to end up with your legal team really having a real connection and feel for the band, not just somebody you picked up, who can handle the legal. He's a real fucking cheerleader for the band as well. So yeah, dude. And like I said, it's like this record, I think people will be taken back a little bit because it's been 16 years for Forbidden. Yeah. And, we had a lot, all of us had a lot musically to get out. And in Norman Skinner, we have a singer who has a bottomless fucking toolbox. Yeah. He's professional and relaxed and confident in his skill set, but he's also very open-minded and very willing to try whatever. And everything we threw at him, he's like, we can try that, and if it sounds great, he's like, yeah, that was pretty cool, man. I like the idea. But then he stands firm on his vision too. So musically, we went on an adventure, man. Like my buddy said, this is a fucking thrash opera, dude. Like, what some people may perceive as taking some risks, we didn't hold back, man. There's a song that we did, that's 9.5 minutes long.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it's an adventure, man. It's like what I said to the guys, I helped a lot with the writing on this one and composing some stuff for it. And, they were very fucking open to my ideas. I was like, guys, all of our heroes, from Sabbath to Rainbow to Led Zeppelin to Aerosmith, they've put out an epic, if, over their careers, maybe even more than that, Iron Maiden, So I was like, let's get one in, because our heroes did it when they were in their fucking 20s or 30s.
Yeah. Let's just do it.
If not now, when, And if people, if people are open to fucking take the journey, then that's the song to do it on. And we sang about a different, we didn't just go about war only or politics, or we didn't want to date the album. We didn't want people to hear this record and go, man, that record is certainly 25 or 2026, We wanted it to be a think piece. We wanted to talk about human nature and, the duality in life, and we still touched on religion. I think we all have some feelings about organized religion, which has always been a subject on most Forbidden albums. Mental health issues and
It sounds like it's going to be timeless.
That was our goal, man. We wanted people to really be able to go, wow, I never thought about it that way. We didn't want anybody to feel called out or attacked. We wrote a song called The Burden, which some people can perceive as a risk, misconstrue in a way, but it's about the women's struggle and what women go through in our history, and the terrible fucking atrocities that are committed on women and women's autonomy being attacked. And I just don't think that men should not be viewed as an ally, you know, and to be able to stand up and make a statement about how women are fucking treated and their rights and their place on earth, and to say, hey, I stand with you. You know, I was raised by women. I've been with my wife 40 years. She's a strong-willed, strong fucking woman who stands up for herself, and I stand by her. Lots of my friends are females that have amazing minds and can do anything anybody can fucking do on this planet. And
I'm excited to hear it. It sounds like it's going to be an epic album.
Yeah, it's a long one. You know, I'm not gonna lie. It's an hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think people will be okay with that, because it's not like for 20 years we've been releasing an album every 18 months and then we put out a long one.
Yeah.
This is a build-up, so people have to look at it as, okay, well, let's take 16 years and think, how many records could we have got in that time frame?
Yeah.
We're kind of taking the best of what we thought we could do, and we didn't really put a clock on it.
Yeah. That's fine. Well, Chris, see, before we go, we've obviously spoke quite a lot about music, the technical side of it, and everything else in between. I'm going to ask you some fun questions.
Cool.
I'll ask the questions, you tell me what pops into your head. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Imagine you've got a time machine. You could go back in time anywhere in the world. What's the one concert that you wish you could have attended?
I wish I could have seen the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Cool.
Noel Redding, Mitch Mitchell's, yeah.
Similar question. If you could go back in time and attend one of your own gigs as a spectator, is there a particular gig that stands out?
I wish I could have seen myself play with Death Angel in Japan.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Does the perfect album start to finish exist? And if so, what is the album?
Whoa. Fuck. Wow, so many album covers just that I listened to. The entire thing just went through my head.
And you can't say Burn My Eyes because you were on that.
Fuck.
Is there one that comes to mind?
Yeah, Led Zeppelin 3. I've never turned it off. I've never turned it off.
That's fine. We're going to put somebody in Machine Head and somebody in Forbidden are going to be painted in a bad light. So I'm going to ask the same question for both bands.
Okay.
So we'll start with Machine Head. You've got Rob Flynn, you've got Logan Mader, and you've got Jared for the Burn My Eyes reunion. Imagine you've got a dead body in the back of your car. You need help disposing of this body, no questions asked. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Which member of Machine Head are you calling for help and why?
J-Rad.
Dare I ask why?
Because he's my ride or die motherfucker, dude.
And the same question for your Forbidden bandmates. Which one of them are you painting in a bad light?
I think I would have. I don't think anybody in Forbidden would do that. I think they'd all chicken out. I don't know, man. That's a tough question. I think Craig would do it.
Right. Okay. So Craig's a possible Dexter. That's fine.
Great question.
That's fine. As you know, thousands and thousands of great songs written and recorded across the years by different artists. What's the one song you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness the band record the song?
Wow. Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd. That's cool. I think that was the album. Is that not the album where Syd Barrett showed up halfway through the recordings and they hadn't seen him for 6 or 8 years?
I think that inspires Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Yeah, crazy. And last question for yourself. The answer could change daily, I'm sure. But for today, who is your Mount Rushmore when it comes to bands? Who's the 4 bands, whether it be your initial inspiration, songwriting, performance, who's the 4 bands for yourself that you're going to put on your Mount Rushmore?
Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
Kiss.
Yep.
Rainbow.
Okay.
And that's where it gets like, fuck. Can't say Led Zeppelin again. and this is just like rock, right? And Black Sabbath.
It's up to you, but we'll go with those 4 bands. But
Black
Chris,
Sabbath.
thank you so much for making a bit of time to come onto the podcast and to speak to myself. I look forward to these new recordings coming out. I do always encourage people, obviously, use the band and yourself. You're all on social media. Give yourselves a follow. But really, the main thing is when the band comes touring, get yourself a ticket, go along, see the band perform, buy a bit of merchandise, help the band out.
Yeah.
And keep music alive. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure speaking.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, dude. Some great questions, dude. Really, really interesting questions. I really enjoyed it, man. Thank you so much for having me and taking your time.
Thanks, pal. Cheers, pal.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Thank you.